Welcome back to Those Are My Thoughts podcast, where we share our thoughts on popular fantasy reads. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Jillian, and welcome back to episode 2 of Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. This episode is a really fun one as well because we'll also be listening to our voice notes from all of Two Twisted Crowns. I'm really excited to hear them. It's actually been a couple weeks since we finished this books because we had some travel and other things going on. So I'm excited to kind of rehash this book together today and figure it out. But I really enjoyed this duology, which I think surprised me because the fantasy we've been reading for the last year has been longer series than a duology. So we hadn't had something so short where we're getting just enough mystery twists and things like that, and then still an ending with like a full wrap up at the end of book 2. It felt really like watching a full movie, if you felt like that too. Like
Yes.
or like almost like because it was like so separate with how it was almost like reading a play, like with an intermission and then the second half. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I
Because
agree.
the first book and second book go so well together, but it's almost like first act, second act kind of situation. It was beautiful. I loved this book, and I feel like it was really easy to get into and understand and fall in love with these characters, and I think Rachel did an amazing job.
I was thinking today you're about to hear our voice memo recap, and you'll understand why I'm saying this. But I was thinking today that Rachel, she just wrote these characters so freaking well. The fact that we can jump between different main characters and be just as in love with them, I think speaks volumes to the writing. Also, she wrote a villain that we hate so much. Like, we have so much passion about hating the character of Hoth.
Ugh.
And I was listening to us talk about it and thinking, wow, well done, Rachel. Like, what you wanted us to feel about this dude, we absolutely feel about him and more. Like, you'll hear, but
I do hate him though.
yeah, oh, we know. And what's really fun is Jillian has not, I edit our voice memo recap. So
That's really funny.
Jillian has,
I don't remember what I said about it.
I'm going to be laughing because Jillian has not heard it, but it's coming. It's coming in a second. Episode 1 is chapter 1 through 30 of Two Twisted Crowns. So we like to do a read along. Two Twisted Crowns. We like to do a read along style because that is authentic to how Jillian and I read. We read together. We read the same books at the same time. And we voice memo each other constantly every day about our progress in the book, who we're loving, who we're hating, our theories. We're also here for the vibes kind of reader. So, like, the theories are not strong, people. They're just fun and out there.
That is what's kind of fun about wrapping up a duology is like we had a lot more predictions, obviously, coming out of book 1, like what's going to happen in book 2. We just got to find out, like, here it is, the finale. Like, this is what that's like, we never feel like that. Like,
Never.
we've never covered anything where we've not been able to be like, and what's going to happen next? Like, you know what I mean? Kind of
Yes.
situation.
Yes.
So this is really nice. Like, get to kind of tie a bow on the end of this series, and I love that. So it's great.
That's true. That's very true. This is, I mean, you and I have read like Throne of Glass, which is a completed series, but we've not done any content on that. So I guess, yeah,
No.
this is, I didn't put that together. Coming up on the voice memo recap, if you have not listened to one of these episodes before, beware. The voice memos are sent in our daily lives. They're sent while we're in the grocery store and while we're in the car. And these ones specifically are sent from the airport and airplane and different countries with different family members in the background. So listen closely. You might hear some babies crying, or you never know. But it's really fun. They're set beginning of the book to end of book, so you'll kind of get our emotions as we go. We like to call it like a little rereading experience. And it's only 8 minutes. So sit back and enjoy. And then as we finish the voice memo recap, we will be here to talk about all of our feelings, thoughts, everything from chapter 31 to end of book. Ratings, reviews, do we recommend?
Which I feel like you already get an idea if we do, but stay tuned for the end to
Who
find
do
out.
we recommend it to? Because I have a very specific niche that I want to give this
Yeah.
to.
That is a good point.
I have a story for that, but that'll come later.
I'm ready to listen.
Me too. Okay. All right. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so I started Two Twisted Crowns. The first chapter is Raven digging through the gravestone, and then Tilly showing up. I guess when he was talking about the children in the first book, it was really confusing. But now, knowing it's his children, he had multiple. I'm really interested in learning their backstory. I am so shocked about how soon the sexual tension starts between Ione and Elm. He's like, I can feel her spine against my chest. Oh, they're only describing that if they're gonna fall in love. All of his little moments where he's thinking about like the silhouette of her body or looking at her lips, and then he has to look away. It's like, whoa, where was this last book? When she reaches back to get his Scythe card from his pocket, I was like, oh, she is not doing this. I really can't wait for Ione to be freed of the maiden. Like, where does the mask begin and the mask end? Like, what's actually her? I hope Hoth dies. I hope he doesn't recover. Oh my gosh, okay. He's helping her get undressed. He like moves her hair out of the way and he says, it's surprisingly heavy, her hair, dense, long enough to wrap around his fist and tug. I'm like, oh my God. I love elms so much. Do you have any picture in your brain of Raven's face always described with like a non-aesthetic nose, like a big nose, like a crow's nose? And I just really can't picture it. The king is questioning Turn, Eric, and Ione. Screw Turn is all I can say. I do think it's crazy how Elm used the scythe in the throne room. He used it to freeze everybody. That was like a really big show of power. They say that Emery's eyes are gray, like the Shepherd King's one son that has gray eyes. Is that just supposed to tell us like the connection of their descendants, and instead of them having yellow eyes, they have gray eyes? The Shepherd King does not want to kill Elm. He uses the words, he'll need him when he harvests the throne. Does he mean that he will put Elm in that place to be the next king? One of the kids says to her, I want a golden egg card. What's a golden egg card? Do you remember that? It's really sad how Ione, like her perception of men, because her experience is Hoth. It's so sad to see all her assumptions of Elm. I mean, it makes sense, but it's so sad. Elm and Ione, spirit in trees. Is that like their, oh my God, trees? Or? No, I think it means like, oh my God, kind of situation. Well, that is the most ridiculous. I wasn't annoyed before when it was just like, oh, trees. But spirit and trees? No, I'm so sorry. That is too much. Too much. I got to part 2 last night. So good so far. I'm worried about Emery. Just worried about him, you know? I'm like so surprised. To me, this is like just turning into Elm's story. I just have this gut feeling that Elm is the answer at the end of this. It is so cool hearing how the Shepherd King made the cards, and when he made the 4 Scythe cards, he gave them all to the Rowans. They're all still with the Rowans. And then him making the maiden card for his daughter. So interesting. We got like a bigger display of the Shepherd King's magic as well. His ability to work with, talk to, and bend the trees or rearrange the trees, things like that. Oh my God, I get it now. Oh my God. Goodness gracious. Elspeth's magic isn't that she absorbs any power from any card that she touches. She absorbs from the card what the Shepherd King paid for it. So the reason that his soul is in her is she touched the card that he paid for with a piece of his soul. I get it now. Like, that's the first time that it's actually been explained. I don't think Elspeth knows that, even. I feel like we never heard about this card. The White Eagle, the card of courage. That feels new. What? He said, what a queen you'd make. Oh. Man, I'm just eating up every single second with them. At first I thought that Ione picked the Nightmare card to be as a fuck you to the king, but it was actually a fuck you from the king to her, which I was like, oh, whoa, that's kind of crazy. I thought it was interesting that the king said the captain of the Destroyers had to die in order for us to continue.
I'm so interested. Like, I feel like this is all coming back to, like, how is this tying in? Like, how is he tying into the Shepherd King? It just seems like the Shepherd King knows so much about Raven. Okay, in chapter 33, the Shepherd King is trying to barter for a way to talk to the Spirit of the Woods, and he basically finds out he can no longer use any of the cards. My red flags are all going up because that's Raven's magic from the infection. So I don't know what that means yet, but all of my red flags are up.
I really loved how when she finally freed herself of the maiden, that she like gave herself time to breathe. Not really process, but I guess just breathe. And then they had their first moment together. It's so sweet.
I'm obsessed with their story, everything about them, the way that he helped her in her mind to find where it is. And I love that he didn't leave and just like waited for her. And then she just pulled him into her room and they just snuggled. It was so sweet. And then they like went and had their like free, sweet, happy, she's laughing. They're just like so free moment. I knew it was all coming crashing down, especially when that was at like 60 something % of the book. I was like, this is literally bad news for us.
I'm just here to say that holy crap, I love this book. I love this book so much. Oh my goodness. Did you see it coming? I did not see it coming that Raven is Taxus. The last name isn't you. That was changed. He's a descendant, which, like, we knew he was a descendant, but why am I so shocked? Jesper, she touches Raven's nose. A couple minutes later, he's like, it's not swollen anymore. All I feel is a tingle. She totally has Tilly's magic now.
I'm really scared for Jesper. I'm scared for Raven. My gut is everyone's making it out alive, and also my gut is someone's dying.
But my main question is, who is going to be the infected person's blood that's spilled? For a moment, I was like, ooh, is it Hoth? Like, is somehow Hoth infected and it's a secret? But I don't really believe that. So who is it going to be?
I know we've had Elm and Ione this whole time, but like you and I speculated that it would be a lot sooner that Elspeth got freed from the Shepherd King so that they could have a moment together. So I'm 75% of the way through and I'm still holding out for that moment together.
I do feel like this is headed towards a very happily ever after ending. As soon in the book that we find out that the maiden card heals Ione, as soon as we get that detail, immediately I'm like, oh crap, they're going to use that to heal Hoth. Definitely.
Hoth. Oh my god. Literally horrible, awful. Screw that man. I hate him so much. Oh my gosh. Ugh, I don't even know what to say. I hope that man dies a horrible death at the end of this. I'm begging this to be a happy ending right now because I need it to be all these hardworking people who worked so hard for all of this. Like, I just need this to be a happy ending. Literally holding my breath. Like, Hoth needs to die. Like, obviously he's not going to win, but like, is someone else going to die? Is my question.
I cried the first time that like Raven comes out of the woods and he speaks into Elm's mind. That got me.
Oh, okay, I just got to the part where he says that he's gonna crown Elm as the king or whatever, which we knew was coming. But I love when he says, a pale tree in winter, first of his name, king of the elms. I love Elm so much. Elm is the only one who has the name of a tree as his first name. Like, his name's Red Elm, but everyone calls him Elm, and Elm is a tree. And I remember thinking, like, that's so odd. I wonder if that'll come into play at any point. And I'm like, here it is. I could cry. I love Elm so much.
There you have it.
We didn't say anything about the end?
We didn't. And let's give some context. I was traveling, and so Jillian and I finished this book maybe like 2 or 3 days apart from each other. So typically when that happens, I get to the end of the book and I want to spill my guts, but I can't ruin it for Jillian, so I withhold the voice notes.
Yeah.
And when she finished it, I was traveling.
You weren't really in a place where you could be like texting or something like that. You were out of the country. So it was definitely harder to communicate while she was gone. So maybe it was shorter than our typical, but it's okay. We'll talk about it. I got things to say about it.
Oh, I got things. Absolutely.
Not a big deal. Oh my gosh. First of all, I guess like I'm skipping to the end a little bit, but I wasn't expecting such a happy ending. Like, bad guys lose, good guys win completely.
Yes.
Obviously, the main loss is the Shepherd King. like when that goodbye happens is the like big goodbye of the series, you know what I mean? Where you're like, you've kind of come to love this character. Something I love that Rachel did with this whole series is her introducing and our relationship with the Shepherd King, the Nightmare, the entire time.
Yeah.
Because I was so up and down the entire series. Like, do we like this guy? Is this guy bad? Even like middle of this book, I'm like, is this guy bad? Like, I'm
Yeah.
not sure when they're talking about his backstory and they're running through all the selfish things he did and everything that all of the stuff he gave up for these cards and blah, blah, blah. Like all the mistakes he made, essentially. I was like, is this guy a bad guy? Like, this is really funny. This is an aside, but right now in my world, I have an almost 2-year-old and everything that he does, everybody either is a good guy or a bad guy. And so you'll ask him every 5 seconds, Bear is he a good guy or a bad guy? Good guy, good guy. I'm like, okay. And then he tells me everybody in the world, like it could be my water bottle, good guy, bad guy. Like everybody is a good guy, bad guy. So I'm
I
saying it like that
love
right now.
that.
Anyway, that's a little note about the world I'm in when I'm not reading books. But the whole time I was like, is the Shepherd King a good guy or bad guy? Is he a good guy,
Just
bad
gotta
guy? I
ask
don't know.
Bear. Bear will let you know.
He might have told me.
But I love that she did that.
Me
I
too.
love that we did not know until the literal last 5 pages. Love it.
And I tell you, I sobbed during the goodbye between him and Elspeth.
I'm excited to talk about this. We haven't talked about this yet, like our feelings about the end, because I was traveling. You have this reaction, I have a different reaction. So continue, and then I'll share.
It's the only time I cried during this book, which is odd, I think, because I wasn't expecting that. You cried a lot more during other
Yeah.
points. That didn't hit me as hard, and I don't know why, but man, the Shepherd King goodbye with Elspeth, I was weeping. I was a mess. Like, I don't know what it was, but then the ending with him kind of still being there and watching over her and seeing the eyes in the trees and things like that. I just love like his redemption arc into like a father figure and us. I think you mentioned this too, but us kind of falling in love with like him almost like falling in love with Raven for Elspeth too, kind of like that like acceptance too and the banter that they share is kind
Yeah.
of like a fatherly banter kind of situation
Definitely.
when he is like he's hard on Raven and then also like she cares so much about him and he works so hard to save him and blah blah blah. And
Even throughout the book, when she's in the Shepherd King's mind, the first couple moments that Raven's like, let me talk to her, he responds like a super protective father and pushes him out, and it's very aggressive. But as the book goes on and you get closer to the end, the Shepherd King almost in those moments shifts to like an understanding parent who wants the person that you love that's safe to you to be around. And you can see him change of like, oh, okay, I don't like it, but I'll give you some space. I'll let you in. I'll let you talk to her.
well, and I think part of that was like when he initially said that, her whole thing from the book 1 was she would say, "Do not use that nightmare card on me. Do not come into my brain unnecessarily," because she didn't want him to see the nightmare and be like judge her for it kind of a situation. But
Yeah.
then once the nightmare took over, he still kept that rule hard in place. Like she said, don't do this, so don't do it. I know it's me up here now, but like don't do it. It wasn't until Elspeth really pushed back on him in their mind, like, let me talk to him. I want to talk to him, that he would let her have that conversation and kind of start to understand their dialogue and hear Elspeth's internal dialogue with it and stuff like that. So I think that was kind of sweet. I did love that.
I found something in the acknowledgments from her book that I want to read because it gives reasons as to why I feel the way I do about the end of the book. It'll make sense in a second.
Do you read acknowledgments?
Not normally, but I don't know, for Rachel I did.
That's so
Sometimes I
funny.
read like the first paragraph and if nothing really moves me, I'm like, "Oh, okay, sweet, sweet, sweet." And I skip.
Oh, I never do, but maybe I should start.
Sometimes there's some good nuggets in there. Okay, she says, but the inevitability of saying goodbye to this duology, these characters, after so many years of carrying them with me, made writing devastating at times. This book had no regard for my marshmallow soft heart. Okay, isn't that sweet? I thought that was nice. I read that and I kind of went, okay, maybe I understand a little more why we got a like perfect happily ever after. Now, it's a duology and it's the end. And most fantasy series, when you get to the end, you do get a happily ever after. So
Something like that, though. But a lot of people still like, you might lose someone along the way, and then
something
whoever's left gets their
tragic.
happily ever after, like, kind of situation. Yeah.
Yes. So here's my thing. Here's the reason I didn't cry when she's saying goodbye to Shepherd King is once I kind of understood that Elsbeth and Raven were not getting like a huge on page reunion.
You were so upset about that.
I was so upset, Jillian. And I really love Rachel's writing, so it is nothing personal. It is a personal thing for Sarah that I was so stuck on something. I mean, I should have known starting this book that it was more Ione and Elm's story, and
Yeah.
actually, that's the reason that I love this duology so much. I cannot believe that you wrote a whole 'nother book and I didn't give two shits about the other two characters that I loved in book 1, you know? Like,
Yeah.
within chapter 1, I'm like, "Who cares about them? I love these 2." You know?
Totally.
But I think when it got to the point where, like, it was pretty obvious that Elspeth was gonna be freed, and I realized, like, I'm in 90% of the book done, I just kind of, like, emotions turned off because I was like, "Oh, this isn't really ending how I thought it was gonna be ending." I've been waiting forever for this Raven and Elspeth reunion that I read all of those things like, okay, like I'm reading the end of a happily ever after story. I'm getting pretty bows tied on all the questions I had, which she did really well. But it didn't hit as hard for me because for me, I was waiting for the thing. That's okay. It's a me problem. I totally know.
I have like two thoughts. One, I agree with you a little bit. I wish it didn't even have to be big. I do wish there was one scene alone with Elspeth and Raven where they really talked about their feelings together and you got to
Yeah.
see, like, it could have been a couple of pages, but if we kind of got like a wrap up of their relationship, which we didn't get. And really, that's all I was hoping for at the end because I could see like how far we were when we were like 80% of the way and we were still in the thick of the like action at the end or whatever.
Yeah.
I knew it was all going to wrap up pretty quick. And I was like, at this point, I'm not looking for like a reunion for
I love when
Elspeth
you do that.
and Raven. I meant like a sexual reunion. Like, because I think at some point you're kind of like, oh, I
Yeah.
want them to get back together. But I got that with Elma and Ione. So I didn't really miss that, to be honest. And I just wanted them to have a conversation, like a quick conversation where we really got to see them express like their true love for one another at the end, which I don't feel like we got. We got like whispers of it via like how they're looking at each other and interacting with each other, but never like an actual conversation where they express themselves to each other or kind of said like, it was kind of like they saved Raven and it was like cut to, a few days later and now
Yeah.
they're trying to
Yeah.
figure out her thing. And it's kind of like, oh, don't skip the cut to. Like, I want to know what's in there. And those are the moments where I wish we would have just had like a couple of pages of a conversation and I missed that. But I will say, like, I still enjoyed the wrap up in general because we got so much with Elm and Ione. I really was very happy with most of it. And because I wasn't as invested into Raven and Elspeth during this book as I was in book 1, that might have been the only thing is like she almost did so good with Elm and Ione that I like literally didn't care about Raven and Elspeth anymore, like at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
So I wasn't even that devastated when the ending was happening because I was having to call back my feelings from book 1, and I was like, "They're not killing Raven now." Like, that's kind of how I felt, like, I was like, "He's not gonna die." We just found out, like, when we figured out Jesper could heal, I was like, "We're
When
fine."
he has his moment of, like, near death, like, he's been stabbed by Hoth or whatever, yeah, that didn't get my emotions at all.
Me either.
I was curious, like, how are you gonna pull this off? But I knew he wasn't gonna be gone. However, I will say, even though I was sad I didn't get that, I was a little bit, I don't know, pissed, I don't know. It did make me, days after finishing the book, appreciate, I think, more so the story she was trying to tell, which was that father-daughter relationship of the Shepherd King and Elspeth, which I don't think I would have picked up on it if she had given me an ending to Raven and Elspeth. I think I would have focused more on that rather
Yeah.
than the ending of Shepherd King and Elspeth. So I do appreciate it. I do think that's a really cool twist. I don't think a lot of people in this genre do that. So I really respect it. And who am I to say that? Like I've I've read a handful of fantasy romance books, so take that with a grain of salt. But I love what she did. Let's talk about this book starts and it essentially immediately is like Elm and Ione. And I know we covered that last episode, but where we ended off with chapter 30, they hadn't even had a spicy scene yet. They had the
Yeah.
cellar scene, which was like an almost.
I feel like so much of Elm and who he like kind of became through this book, like his character arc, me understanding like what you don't know in book 1 is why Elm is the way he is, and that's what you find out in book 2. This like horrible trauma that him and Ione have both been
Oh
through.
my.
But you like can see how awful the Scythe card is, like if they use it on other people, but you don't think about how they use it to people like in their inner circle to make them do things, and how he was basically abused by his brother for years and years until he got his own Scythe card and could finally fight back. But
Mhm.
even then, if somebody else, if you're under a Scythe, like he can't get to his Scythe card. Like it's one of those things where he was just like fully abused with that for forever. And Hoth was so horrible and awful. And I think that part made me so sad for Elm, learning his backstory and stuff like that. His story was so beautiful, the way that like they both kind of like worked through that trauma. And I do think we talked about that a lot last episode too, because it comes up with him needing a safe space and her bringing him to the library. Like that's in last episode, and it kind of comes full circle again when they finally get the maiden card for Ione, and she's got to work through the trauma of that. Like she says to him, like, when I tap this card, everything I haven't been feeling for the last however many months is going to come crashing down. Like, I'm going to feel it all. And I was like, oh my gosh, like when she says it like that, I can't imagine
Mm-mm.
what that must feel like.
Which I love. I know that we're in a fantasy romance world, so nothing is realistic, but I do like in this genre when we get glimpses of realism, and that was a moment, and I said it in the voice note. I really enjoyed that, like, she told us readers, "Hey, this is what's gonna happen when I get freed." And then I love that she gave space for herself to I said, like, not really process because a short amount of time had
Yeah.
passed, but she gave space for herself to do whatever she needed, and that was to breathe, and that was to be alone and not be with the person that was trying to take care of her. So real to real life of sometimes how you don't know what your body's gonna need in that moment of responding to trauma. Actually, as you're talking about all this, it is wild how well and poetically, without going too detailed, how she wrote about abuse, trauma, domestic abuse, domestic violence. Wow. And I really like we feel for these characters and their stories, but she didn't even ever really go too in depth into examples of the trauma. Probably the most detailed is Ione falling out of the window and all of that, like, the
Oh
forcefulness of that.
my God.
But even with Elm, everything is kind of alluded, and without having to be straight up of, like, "This is what happened," we have such empathetic feelings for him of you can visualize it, you understand it, of what happened. That wow, I actually haven't thought about that till right now of how well she wrote that.
Yeah. Oh my
I'm very
gosh.
impressed.
Yeah. And everything Ione went through with him too. Like, I really do think he's one of the most hateable villains in,
Hoth.
yes, in a series we've read. Like, just truly like to his bones awful, like for what, you know? And it was kind of like that whole, well, this happened to me, so it's going to happen to you kind of situation. Like, oh, this is just how it is with our family. We all have sky cards and use them for power. And
Which you made me think that it was that much more powerful when we realized you can just tear the car in half. You can just destroy it. Was
Oh
that
my.
Raven that had that power? Who was it?
Oh, because it was a specific power, wasn't it, of
I think it
somebody's?
was a Raven thing. That he could just tear it. And all of this time,
Yes, because, sorry, the Shepherd King's son, who is Raven's descendant, like he's a descendant of,
Bennett.
yes, Bennett. He's a descendant of Bennett, of the Shepherd King, but of Bennett with the gray eyes, which is why they have gray eyes in his family and not yellow,
Crazy.
because his mother had gray eyes, right? And so he got his mom's gray eyes, and then that got passed down to Raven's family. It was him who ripped up the other Scythe, right? He was the one, because they were saying like, oh, we could only ever find 3. I don't know what happened to the 4th one. That's what the whole thing was. It was kind of like, it's this big secret where everyone thinks there's 4 and there's actually not. There's only 3, but we don't know where the 4th one is. And it
Loved
was
it.
Bennett the whole time had done that. And so because the cards don't affect Bennett, they don't affect Raven, that was his power, is that he
Yeah.
could just rip them apart. And that was really a crazy thing where it was just like, that's how, isn't that how too, like that's how they fixed Elspeth?
By ripping the cards?
Because it was like really simple the way that they
Oh, I think you're right. The nightmare card, he was like,
just
he had
destroy
2
it.
options. If you do this, if you do that. And he was like, yeah, but you'll never come back. And he's like, I made my peace.
Yeah.
Yeah, ripping the card. Dang. Yes, because I think I texted you and I was like,
And Raven's like, I could have
oh
done that
my
the
god.
whole time. And
Yes.
he's like,
Yes.
yeah, you could have, but then all of this other stuff wouldn't have been in place. Like, and you needed to learn all of this stuff before. I really loved how they brought all of that full circle, but like Elm and Ione getting to kill Hoth together was really awesome because it was like both of their abusers. And that being the thing that lifted the mist. And then the Shepherd
Oh
King.
wait, but Elma and Ione killing him, like that was also really sad moment because it was like the trauma was coming up and he like Elm couldn't really, and then she was there for him and she's like, it's okay, we'll do this together. Ah. Okay, sorry, keep going.
No, it was very like intense at the end. But then
Mm-hmm.
I love that he like so easily, like it wasn't even that much longer after when Raven was recovering and you see this like everyone's got like lighter. Elma's in the room, they're making fun of each other. Ione walks by, he's flirting with her in front of everybody, and everyone's like, what the heck happened while we were gone? Like, I love that so much. And she's just like so easily steps into the queen role and like kind of seeing everything that happened with her and how her own father like tricked her and traded her in for that whole thing and then into the abusive relationship. Like, I just wanted to give Ione a hug. And then
Yeah.
he tried to kill her twice.
I do like that that wasn't a happily ever after, that like by the end of the book, Elspeth is like, yeah, he's here, but yeah, I'm not talking to him, or like some people still haven't made their peace with him, or blah blah blah. I was like, thank God that
Yeah.
it's not like a we're a happy family again. I'm like, this dude literally wrote your death sentence multiple times.
Yeah, that was weird. Yeah, her father, I have really horribly mixed feelings about. And then,
I just thought, like, isn't it funny how the 2 main characters we fell in love with, Raven and Elspeth, normally those main characters you fall in love with become king and queen at the end, and instead, it was other secondary that became main characters that became king and queen. That's kind of cool. I like that.
Raven was always like, I don't want that. And he said, you could be the king. And he was like, that's not what I want. And it was like, oh, it's okay. It's going to be Elm anyway. Like, kind of a situation. It was always the plan.
Was it this book that you told me that you were getting Harry Potter Horcrux vibes? Do
Yes.
you yeah? Like, when they
Wasn't
were
it?
going through, I think it was when they were going through, was it the Alder Woods? What was that called?
Wait.
When they were going through the woods? I
Yeah.
don't know, because that was a pretty crazy journey.
Something about that second half of the book where you have to work through the feelings of the Shepherd King, like something we haven't talked about. And we didn't talk about it in the voice notes either, which I'm shocked about. The moment Gorse dies, he's going to be the spare. That's supposed to be the one that essentially gets sacrificed to lead them through the alder woods. But they don't know that. Only the Shepherd King knows that this is going to come to a head at some point. And when they get to this point, someone has to give up their charm to lead them through the woods to the spirit of the wood. And it ends up being Jesper, which is poetic because it was his sister that did it in the first place, and he lost her. She didn't survive. And so for it to be Jesper again, and Raven was like, you knew this was going to happen. And he was like, well, we came with a spare. But we can't turn back now. So like, what do you want me to do? Like, you killed him. But then also he said like he had to die, blah, 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 whatever, all this thing. So I kind of struggle with that part, like the Alderwood and the Spirit of the Wood portion, until it was Raven talking to the Spirit of the Wood, finding out his true name.
Me
That part
too.
I
Me
loved.
too.
But the rest of it, I was just like, what's going to happen with Jesper? I really didn't want her to die. I was actually really scared she was going to, but then also at the same time, I was like, isn't she the redemption for the sister who died now? Like, isn't that the point of this kind of a situation? I was really hoping she wouldn't, and she didn't. It was a happy ending. But that whole portion was hard for me to read.
We both predicted that Emery was going to die, and he didn't. Surprise! Congratulations, Emery. We're really happy that you're alive.
Nobody died that we love, which is crazy.
Oh, true.
Her dad didn't die. You know what else? Can I say something that's really funny that I feel like we haven't talked about, that I just can't believe wasn't a part of this book at all, was her stepmom and her stepsisters. Like, they brought it up in book 1, like she's this horrible woman kind of situation, and then she just never comes back, and at the end they were like, yeah, they're there too. And it's
They're
like,
at the wedding. I was
what?
like,
Don't we hate
true.
them? Like, that
Man,
part is really funny.
if you reread book 1 and 2, like you and I had a couple, oh my God, we read Onyx Storm between these 2 books. So we had many weeks and feelings in between these books. If you read these books back to back, I'm sure that they would feel very different from each other.
Yeah.
Because in book 1, you're also learning the magic system and you're learning about the cards and whatnot. In this book, you had made a point to me that in Two Twisted Crowns, the cards are almost like what they do, their function is almost never mentioned. Which I guess,
Yes.
yes, like we should know it by now, but that's why it's so hilarious the amount of times I messaged you of like, what's the White Eagle card? We've never heard about it. They never told us. And Jillian's like, Sarah, they've told us what all the cards are. You already know this.
But
Like,
I do feel for you because they actually never use that card. Like,
yeah.
we never get a picture of how it's used, which I think, is it the only one? Or maybe we don't.
No, I told you about 2 of them. What's the other one?
The golden egg. What is that one?
What does that card do?
I gotta look back at the first book. I don't remember. And I didn't think to look it up. For the vibes only. But I wish some of that, like, if the series had been longer, or if the books had just been like a little bit longer, maybe we could have gotten more of like glimpses into those moments. But at the end of the day, like, I don't think there's much I would have added from a plot perspective, except for that one conversation at the end with.
And honestly, I think you can fix it with a 1 bonus chapter. And it's just Raven and Elspeth having a little catch up in the bedroom of just sharing their truest, darkest feelings. That's all we want.
That's all I want. Not too much to ask.
You said to me when Raven woke up, it is Elm in the bedroom, and you had said like, "Oh, I thought it was gonna be Raven." Honestly, like just that tweak and that moment would have been so different. You don't remember when Raven is waking up.
Sorry. Yes, you had twisted the words, the names there for a second, so it confused me. I also was thinking, I think what I was trying to tell you was, yes, that moment as well. But then also the moment he was being healed, I thought maybe we were going to get a separation of like, because the Shepherd King hadn't showed up yet. I thought maybe there was happening a separation between, because the mist was lifting, that Elspeth and the Shepherd King were going to be separated. Potentially, I don't know. And then I thought maybe we would get Elspeth being there when Raven was being healed to be there for him, like in that moment.
Yes.
Like, and then obviously when he wakes up in the room later and it's still Elm there and not Elspeth.
Okay. Well, I agree with both.
You know what I mean? I wanted it
Yeah.
to either one
Yeah.
to be Elspeth there. And it was like, oh, the Shepherd King shows up and he's the one leading them through the process of like Jesper, which I needed to happen, right? Like him leading Jesper through that process and him basically, it was a healing moment for him, basically teaching his daughter how to do it, blah, 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 all the things, which I mean, makes sense. But I also wanted Elspeth to be there for Raven. I hate that they were so not separated sometimes. Like I wanted
Me
them,
too.
because we weren't getting that inner dialogue and we were missing so much of what we got in book 1, which was Elspeth's inner dialogue about that. And I think we were just missing a lot of that. I don't know how you felt, but I found it a little bit hard, I think, when we were in Elspeth's inner dialogue in this book, because it was not like, it wasn't like a character that was out interacting with other people. So the chapters where it was just her inner dialogue, unless it went back into that dream state kind of where we were learning about the Shepherd King's backstory, the part where we're just hearing her inner dialogue, that was a little hard for me to follow, I guess, or
Stay engaged. No, that makes sense. I enjoy this in the end of any book when she explained to us like what the system of the world is now, that the thing was taken away, the evil thing, the mist.
mm-hmm.
So I enjoy that they were kind of showing us like how they're going to run the kingdom and what they're going to do with the cards, and anybody who wants to be cured can come, and if you don't want to be cured, you're going to be protected. You won't be punished for.
So I don't know how you felt about this, but I was surprised the cards were still in play after like the
Mm,
spirit of the wood went away. Like they didn't go away. Like obviously spirit of wood was like always there, but the mist was gone.
yeah.
And I felt like that was like the price for the cards, and now the cards still worked, which I thought they were just going to be like null and void, I guess, after.
I thought that as well, but I like that they stayed.
Yeah, I don't mind it. They ripped up all the scythes so they didn't exist anymore. So that wasn't a thing anymore, which I loved. And everything else kind of still was a thing. And then if you wanted to be cured, you could be cured forever. Or if you really loved your magic, you could keep it. If you felt like you were degenerating, you could go get cured. Like, really interesting, I
Yeah.
guess, which I just wasn't expecting. I guess I was expecting the magic to go away. I don't know what I was expecting. You know what I mean? It was really,
Same.
I don't know. I was surprised about that part of the ending, but obviously the way that Elm and Ione decided to run the country with this being like a choice, and you will not get punished if you decide to keep your magic, and that's all so beautiful. So I love that.
Yeah, me too. I'm sure I'm forgetting many like favorite things from this book, but
Yeah.
overall, wow, this duology caught me by surprise. I didn't think that you could tell me like on a spicy rating scale, it's probably a 1. I don't know.
I think there was one scene.
Yeah, nothing. And that I would rate it this highly. Wow, it's so good. It's so beautiful. She touches on so many topics like empathy and drama and friendship and family. Mystery. I actually, when I think of this book, I think like, oh, it's a little bit mystery thriller. Like, I loved those elements. To me, these books are a perfect recommendation for a friend who would be wanting to dip a toe into fantasy romance world and doesn't know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
First. Second, if you have any friends that are scared of the idea of reading a spicy or smutty book, which we all have different tolerance levels, we all have different
Yeah.
likes and dislikes, whatever, no judgment. I have some friends who would not want to read a spicy book, and these are absolutely a recommendation for me to them.
Yeah.
It's still fun. I mean, it's way less than anything you'd get from a PG-13 film.
Yes.
It's so good.
And I think too, you're right. Like the romance is front and center a bit, but not any spice. And the spice that you get is really sweet, like just sweet, like connecting. Like it's just like this very like there's none of the like spice for spice like moments kind of a thing. Which don't get me wrong, I love. But if that is not your thing,
That's
that's
okay.
okay. And this is
Mhm.
an awesome book to, number one, I think we said this at the end of the first book, but easy magic system, easy to
Yes.
understand. really both books so fast to get into. Like the plot kicks off right away, so you kind of just like are in it like right away, figuring out what's going on and all of these things, and the mystery from book 1 starts right away, and there's all these like new questions at the start of book 2, which I love. Again, she did these perfectly where she kept our interest for both books. Like I was guessing what was maybe going to happen at the end up until it happened. Like I wasn't even right about a chunk of it. Like I was still
Totally.
surprised by a lot of how the ending played out. Highly recommend for new people to this world, or like you said, don't want a lot of spice.
And if you've already been in fantasy romance for a second, like for both of us, this was not something that we read with it wasn't our first books in fantasy romance, and it wasn't within our first 5. Still so much fun. If you're a Sarah J. Maas fan, if you're a Rebecca Yarros fan, this is just as fun. It's different, can't be compared, but it is just as fun. I loved it. Loved it so much.
It's not as like complex, but sometimes in a good way. Like you're not overthinking it almost. I had to remind myself in book 1 to stop overthinking it because it's only 2 books. Like I wanted to be like, it's not that deep. There's 2 books. We're going to find out next book. Like it was really nice to feel that way, honestly. So highly recommend.
What's your rating?
5.
For Two Twisted Crowns?
Yeah.
That's okay. You can
4.5. 4.5.
I was going to say One Dark Window is a 5-star for me, and Two Twisted Crowns is like a
I love Elm.
4.7.
I like Elm and Ione better than I like Elspeth and Raven.
I know you do, which I think I do too. Like Elm's character is somebody who I definitely love.
Plot, though, flowed easier in book 1.
I agree.
You're right, but it wasn't as choppy, but that was almost like this book, it wasn't its fault because we had to be in 2 different places at once. So what were they going to do? And they still kept us interested in both plot lines. We were dealing with 2 different plot lines the entire book, which was, we didn't have like one character in that group like going place to place like we did first book. And that made it easier to follow, I think. And in this book, it was choppier, but still really good, you know? And we got our ending, and we got the love story, and we got the answers we wanted. So it's hard not to almost give it 5 stars if I'm giving the first one 5 stars. But yeah, like I agree with you. The plot doesn't flow as easy. And there were times I didn't care what was happening with Raven and Elspeth, and I should have, because their plot was moving the story along.
It's true. Like their plot was the most important, but Elm and Ione was where the romance was.
I know. So yeah, that was hard because it was like I should have cared about one plot. I didn't as much, but
yeah.
So maybe you're right. 4.5.
Yeah. 4.7, 4.8. Main thing I learned was Rachel Gillig, I love your writing. I'm a fan. I would love to read more.
I love something we haven't talked about yet this episode is how her poetry kept coming up throughout the entire series. And it was so gorgeous. And it was in a way where it didn't make things confusing. I'm looking at you, a different book. It wasn't weird imagery for weird imagery's sake. It was beautiful poetry that hit. Like literally when I was reading that poem again for like the 15th time, when they said it to each other, that's when I was hysterically sobbing. She makes him say it, which kills me because she's
the
like,
Shepherd King. Oh, yes. And oh, yes.
She says to him, I'll tell you a story, I whispered. It always helped me sleep as a child. He nodded, folding his hands over his lap, and closed his eyes. There once was a girl, clever and good, who tarried in shadow in the depths of the wood. There also was a king, a shepherd by his crook, who reigned over magic and wrote the old book. The 2 were together, so the 2, I couldn't go on. The Shepherd King says to her, Elspeth, and she says, no, I'm not ready, not yet. And he says to her, finish the story. And that's when I was like, oh, you're just sobbing. And then she says the 2 were together, so the 2 were the same. The girl, he whispered. The king, she says, and they said the final part together. And the monster they became. And I was sobbing. I don't know how you weren't crying during that.
I was already pissed.
that part, that was such a thread through the whole thing. And like, to me, the first time they said that to us, I was like, oh, the Nightmare's the Shepherd King. And you were like, I don't know. And I was like, did they not just say it? I'm so confused. But I will say, like, what was in book 1 that wasn't in book 2 was all those poems before each chapter or whatever, which I thought were beautiful. And I do want to go back. I almost wish she like repeated them in book 2, because like you're saying, some of that contained like good information that I kind of skipped over because it was like so sing-songy. And then I wish I would have gone back and like had almost like a glossary of that stuff to read back from again and things like that. So
I don't know if it's personality, personal preference, good writing versus bad writing. I don't think it's that. I think it's preference. But I just think it's so funny that you and I have read a romance fantasy book that's super heavy on poetry. And then we read these and super heavy on poetry. And we said, like, that was the reason that we didn't like it so much. And now we're reading these and we're like, that's the reason that we like it so much.
what's easy for this one is they made them like poems to read, like little snippets, and you knew they were a poem separate from the regular dialogue of everything else that was going on. I mean, the Nightmare spoken poems, so like his stuff kind of came out that way, especially in book 1 a lot more when he was trying to be elusive. And the Spirit of the Wood spoke it that way too, kind of a situation, but different from the other book we read.
We have an episode on this other book. It's on your listening platforms, but it's also on YouTube to watch. A singular episode on it. You should go listen and tell us your thoughts.
No spoilers for this book, but the book is When the Moon Hatched, just so you know. It's kind of our other book. It's literally, I think the listeners are split 50-50, so we would love to know where you guys stand. If you've read this book, please tell us where you stand with When the Moon Hatched and how you felt about the writing, because I do think the readers are split 50-50 with how they felt about it, because I hear people felt similarly as we did. And the thing is, I loved the plot of that book.
Yes, this is the thing. We both enjoyed the book a lot.
But I struggled with the writing a ton. And I don't think I've had that happen yet, but it was also very sing-songy in the way that it did things, but it was included in the normal like back dialogue, and it made things confusing, where this felt very separate. Like, we're either like that person's trying to be elusive, so they're talking in a poem, or here's a poem on the page or a poem in the epilogue. So it felt very different. Not the writing in general wasn't that way. It was like certain people or certain moments kind of a situation.
Yeah, I understand.
So that's how I feel about it, but I loved it overall.
Same. Wow. Highly recommend. So good. Next book to be released is actually to be determined, because what we're reading right now, we'll be talking about later in the year, because book 2 is coming out. We're currently reading Quicksilver, but we will record our thoughts and release that for you when book 2 comes out. Which one does book 2 come out?
November.
So that you can binge all that together. So next listening is to be determined. If you really super want to know, head to our social media. You'll get all the details there of what we're reading, what's next to be talked about, and all those things.
But if you've read Quicksilver, I'm sure.
Talk to us now.
Tell us your thoughts without telling us your thoughts. We're not quite halfway through yet. So, but we recommend it, I think. So we'll see.
Can you recommend something in chapter 10?
It's good though. I'm on chapter 12, so I'm excited. I'm excited for the next read. But for now,
those are my thoughts.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening. We also want to be your long-distance book bestie. You can find this podcast on all your favorite listening platforms. You can watch us on YouTube at Those Are My Thoughts Podcast. Follow us on Instagram, My Thoughts Pod, on TikTok, mythoughts.pod.
We'd love to hear your thoughts and book recommendations. Email us at thosearemythoughtspod@gmail.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen. We love you. See you next time. Bye.